Hey guys, it's Thursday night, so it's Broadcast Team Alpha. And there's so many things going on at the moment that I was not even inspired to do our usual intro. And it was funny
Guys,
because I was
it's Thursday
remembering when I
night,
was a
so it's
little girl
Broadcast Team
in
Alpha.
Catholic
And there's
school
so many things
that
going
we
on
would
at the
have to
moment.
write JMJ on the top of all of our work, right? Everything that got turned in, and that stood for Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. And I always remembered that. That gave me such a safe feeling. And I know, right? So just humor me because I was raised Catholic, right? So tonight I was thinking I'm going to put a big JMJ over the whole universe and network and anywhere where we are broadcasting tonight, because we are sovereign and we are protected, and we're going to have a really great conversation. So I just want to say thank you as always for being here. I'm going to dispense with the hoopla tonight because we have a lot to talk about with one of our favorite returning guests.
Yes, then I'll introduce the guest, but I want to also say that if you're watching this on YouTube and you like what you hear, please subscribe. That'll help us a lot. And of course, the super chat is open. I mean, Christmas Eve is open, so just go ahead and help us out there too if you can, if you feel like it. And yeah, and also I want to give a shout out to the Conscious Awakening Network over there, consciousawakeningnetwork.org. Go there and visit. You're gonna like it, and you're gonna find out why when you get there. But we have a phenomenal UFO researcher with us. We have Preston Dennett here, returning to Broadcast Team Alpha. And Preston started investigating UFOs some 35 years ago, maybe even more, when he discovered that some of his friends had some really strange experiences where they talk about being on spaceships and seeing alien creatures, and that kind of, the bell went off and he went after it, and here he is today, 35 years later, written 32 books on the subject, and got hundreds of articles on UFOs and the paranormal and all of these things out there. And for those of you that like to watch his website while you're listening, here is the website: Preston, actually Preston Dennett .weebly.com. And we're going to talk about a lot of things that is maybe uncomfortable tonight. Maybe the fake alien invasion is a little uncomfortable because that could be really scaring if they are able to pull it off. But also, we're going to have some fun stories from him. How about a story about when a UFO shows up right over a drive-in theater and sits there, lights flashing everywhere, people are running for the hills, and this is a fun story. I want Preston to talk about this. So we're gonna have some fun this time, and gosh, I'm talking too much. Welcome to the show, Preston.
Welcome, Preston. So good to see you.
Thank you, Nori. Thank you, Aage.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure and an honor.
Always,
Yeah.
always. So, Preston, what is going on? Although New Jersey just took a back seat to new spectacles, what is going on with the drones? I saw Dr. Greer on today, and he said it's really important that we talk about it.
I think it is. It's pretty rare that UFOs get into the news. And boy, the media frenzy on the drones was really
Yes.
unprecedented. And I've actually found that a little bit suspicious, honestly. And having really looked deep into this subject, this is a really unusual wave of activity that I honestly don't think is ET. And I'm going to underline that. I've gotten some pushback on this because some people are like, wait, how can you say that? you can all we have to make our own judgment, our own assessment. We all have on our pathway to knowledge and doing the best we can. Uh, but I can say that I've investigated a number of UFO waves over the years and certainly studied everything I can on this subject. And there's just some things that just aren't matching up with your regular UFO wave, which usually involves saucer-shaped craft or a variety of craft, but with portholes, landing, people being pulled on board, ETs communicating with people. What you get is the entire range of encounters with most UFO waves. By that,
When you, hey Preston, when you said that you don't think they are aliens and extraterrestrial, I think you're onto something, because the Donald Trump's press secretary said right from the pulpit that they had investigated it and found that the FAA had given the government permission to fly drones over New Jersey. So I think you're right on the mark on that one.
I find the whole timing a little bit suspicious. Not only the media coverage, but here we are having, Tim Gallaudet and Lou Elizondo and fairly highly placed government officials, a lot of them doing these congressional hearings and making real strides towards disclosure, which we haven't had. And then suddenly, here comes this huge distraction. And never got a straight answer from government officials, which was all over the map. Everything from, it's not happening to it's hobbyist drones to, we don't know what it is. Well, we think it's China and just back and forth and sideways. But it's only largely being seen at night. That's another thing that I find a little odd because the UFO waves generally cover the whole time period in terms of, daylight hours and so forth.
It appears as there are three different kinds of them. One of them have propellers, and those don't come from other planets. And then there are other ones that look metallic, but they are solid. And then we have the plasma ones that shift. And what do you think is the difference there?
Well, it's very hard to sort of parse all this out and understand and unpack it because, we have got a lot of CGI stuff that's out there, and that's not making things any easier to figure out. Because I mean, some of it's like, look at this drone. I'm like, this is CGI. You start to get a feel for what's CGI and what's not. But it's really hard now because it's getting better and better and better. And along with that is the fact that our own governments, secret governments, military, are really advancing in their technology, reverse engineering of ET tech even, and for that matter, holographic technology, where they can put something up in the sky and you're not going to be able to tell whether this is real or an actual hologram. I mean, we've all seen the billboards that have dragons coming out of them and cars and people reaching out and whales flying out of the gymnasium floor. It looks real. And this is in the public arena. And that's, definitely we need to understand that what's in the private military sector is far advanced from anything we see. So people are talking about orbs. Well, there's no reason to think that this could be ET until we know it's ET. And I think our government does have things that will absolutely look and be mistaken for ET craft. But there are little clues that you can tell because ET craft come down and they zip away in a millisecond. If you're looking at all this drone footage, there's some of it's waving around and some even looks like it's going pretty fast there. Look up drones. You'll be surprised to see how advanced they are. Some are quite large too. People are like, well, no, these are about the size of a car. Yes, some drones are that large.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know
I
that.
didn't know it either. I'm like, I better educate myself on this. I
Wow.
always told people education is our best tool to, fight the cover up and figure out what's going on here. I'm hoping that this isn't the case. but we've all heard of this sort of fake ET invasion. It's been in the buzz of the UFO community for a long time. And I'm hoping this is not a dry run of
Yeah.
like, let's see what we can do. Let's see how people react. Let's see if we can pull this off and make people think this is ET. Uh, so that could be a possibility. I heard someone say,
Yes.
oh, it's artificial intelligence. It's escaped and it's flying around. You
Mhm.
have to consider each theory, but clearly not hobbyists. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
the drones in the public arena that we can buy can't do the things these things are doing.
Oh,
Ah.
So we
And
know that.
Dr. Greer today, I did not personally see him. I actually found a brand new video. He was on somebody's podcast today, and he said that it's important that we talk about it because of the governmental, he said it, influence in what's going on with the drones and the fear factor. He said it, and the fear factor. And a lot of people are scared, a lot of
yeah.
people were really scared and are scared, and I think it's so important to, like you said, open up the education as wide as you can, even for the people tonight who may be listening or on the replay who are new to all this. And you're like, I don't know if I believe this. Maybe just see if you can be a gentle observer tonight, and then see if you make more sense out of what we've said tonight at another point in time that may help you, quell some of the fear or some
Best
of the
tool to fight fear is
discomfort.
knowledge. People say
Yeah.
ignorance is bliss. I don't think so. Knowledge is power. Knowledge
Yeah.
is a good tool to fight fear. Knowledge and love. If we can walk
Yeah.
together in truth, compassion, and love and knowledge, we can
Yeah.
move past fear and just figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
So, and what's interesting to me is that, it's in the news and then it's out of the news. It's in the news and then it's out, and does feel very much propaganda-ish. Uh, it does feel like they're doing this as a distraction in some ways. It's very hard to unpack because
Yeah.
we're getting so many different explanations
Yeah.
from so many different people. There was one
Yeah.
guy who was interviewing the senators as they're coming out of the Capitol, asking them, what do you think this is? And every single one of them said, I don't know. I'd love to know. I don't have the answers. These are the people at the highest level of our government,
Yeah.
and they don't have the answers. That's not helpful.
No.
And we have the Pentagon and the intelligence agencies issuing contradictory statements. There's nothing to it. It's hobbyists.
Yeah.
We think it might be China. We don't know. Of course, then they said, well, they're searching for nuclear material. I found that to be a possible, plausible explanation. Do I
Yeah.
think it's
Because
ET? No. I talked to Jim Goodall. He's an aviation historian, very well known in this community, and a very intelligent guy. I'm like, what do you think of these drones? And he's like, I think they're ours. Covert military ops.
yeah.
I've talked to a few people who are in the, highly placed in the military or in the know.
Yeah.
And that was the answer I kept getting, which is kind of my assessment.
Yeah.
So that's honestly what I think is going on. Covert military ops.
Mhm.
Perhaps there is a reason for this beyond just a propaganda fear campaign. But I wonder about it because there are a number of cases out there throughout the world of so-called UFO incidents, which are quite alarming and nefarious. And,
Yeah.
Yes.
and I think part of a precursor to what we could be looking at, which is really unfortunate. I would hope our government has our best interests in mind. I really
Yeah.
think a lot of
I'm
people
with
in our
you.
government do. But let's look
Mhm.
at the history of things, even if you move out of the UFO sector, the way our government or the military is treated, the population is not good.
Mm.
Irradiating soldiers without their knowledge, feeding people
Mm.
hallucinogenics, doing
Yeah.
medical experimentation on them, infecting them with venereal disease. We know they
Yeah.
did this. Uh,
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't mean to be a downer, but you cannot underestimate evil. It's a real difference
Exactly.
if you do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think you
Um,
also have to remember what Bill Clinton said when he was asked about the UFOs. What's the story? And he said, I can't get any answer. He says, and they asked him why, and he says, there is a government behind the government, and I am not part of it.
Yeah, which
So
is
the government
crazy to
that
me.
yeah, so the government we're talking about in Washington D.C., they don't know chocolate. They're not in the loop. The
Yeah, it's kind of
government
like Project Blue
behind.
Book. You
Yes.
know, Project Blue Book is very famous for being an Air Force UFO study. Turned out to be a sham, not a true
Yeah.
investigative body, a front. That's what our
Yeah.
government is. Our government is like the Project Blue Book. Well,
Yeah.
behind the scenes, the real control is going on. We know who's running the country. We know it's the Pentagon, it's the highest levels of the military, it's the one percenters, it's the corporations, the energy
Yeah.
industry, the banking industry, the insurance industry, the pharmaceutical industry. These are the folks, those are just some of them
Yeah,
who are,
and I
you
think
know,
George Carlin got it right. He said it's a private club and you're not in it.
yeah,
mm,
and I think we have to really recognize that,
Yeah.
do our research. And like I said, knowledge is our best tool right now.
Yeah.
And if all of
absolutely.
humanity comes together and say, listen, we know what's going on and we're not standing for it. I've
Right.
said it many times. The strongest tool that we have is educating people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if we just come together, we can humanity is the greatest force on this planet. That's what I'm trying to say. We,
True.
not the government, us.
Right. Yes. Yes, but we're the fleas that have been habitualized to hitting the top of the jar only so high, and you take the jar cap off, and we're not going any higher out of the jar, right? We've been habitualized, and now we're beginning to break out of it because what is being shown to us is so hard to just wrap your brain around that we're finally, breaking out of that habitualization, that hypnotism that we have been under. And I just want to throw in here really quick that, if you are having emotional or psychological or fearful issues, please come join us on Sundays for the manifestation. I just lost my thoughts.
Yeah. Join us in the mastermind. Then
Thank you.
yeah.
My mastermind. Sorry, guys. Um, yeah. The yeah, the mastermind connection. So,
Yeah.
um,
Send us an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com and we'll
yeah.
get the email, send you information, a link, and come and
Yeah.
check it out because
Yeah.
there's a lot of education there on.
And not just education, that's where I was going to go with this. People are starting to find us because we've been in existence for like three years now, and although we do very beautiful benevolent things, a lot of healing, sending energy out into the world, into the new world, the way that we want to see things, there's comfort for people who are scared, who can't talk to their family about this. Your neighbors think you're crazy, they're kicking you out of church. So come hang out with us and at least you can catch your breath. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
throw that out there.
Just to have a
Yeah.
safe place. And
It
you know,
is
you
a
said
safe
something,
place.
Nori,
Yeah.
that we're hypnotized, and I think that's so true because the media, the idiot box, the TV, 24 hours is hypnotizing people into a way of thinking. Fear controls people, and
Right.
people have become to be hypnotized to think we have no power. We do.
Yeah.
And this is what
Yes.
is so cool about the ET presence is they're coming down and pulling people on board in very large numbers and giving them messages and warnings and trying to wake us all up to the fact that we are unlimited, powerful, immortal beings who do
Mm,
have the ability of telepathy and all kinds of psychic abilities. This is one of the big ET agendas is to just
Yeah.
wake us up to our own power. Just wake us up, period.
Yeah.
They're doing a massive publicity campaign to announce their presence. And it's been very successful because
Yes.
now we're at a point now where pretty much everyone knows about UFOs. You may not believe it, most do.
Mhm.
And I think anyone who's got a rational mind and is willing to look at the evidence that's already out there could see that disclosure has, in effect, already happened. The
Absolutely.
ETs have done the work. We know UFOs are real. The evidence is there to unequivocally, absolutely conclusively prove that we are being visited.
Yes, yes. And for those who know that you have been visited, but you have been afraid to tell that story, now the gates are opening, and there's a lot of us who are here to receive you and to receive your story, so you don't have to stuff it anymore, or feel like you have to hide. And a lot of the people who have been visited have had fairly decent experiences. Aage and I, we interviewed only experiencers when we first started Broadcast Team Alpha. Some people had their life ruined, and some people were made well. I mean, physically and emotionally, and with their psychic powers. Um, so those of us who have been visited, don't be afraid to speak out, speak out. Call MUFON if you've had an experience. Reach out. There's so many people who have groups now. I mean, Elena Denon has groups for women who have been taken off planet to have off planet children. And there's a lot of people that has happened to, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, and this is the time to relieve yourself of the burden, and that's what's going to help you relieve the fear.
Well,
But my
here's the way I look at
question,
it. If you're
yes.
having, just real quick, if you're having experiences and you want to keep them secret, I certainly understand because the climate out there is hostile. But let's face it, if there's people around you who can't accept who you are they really your friends? Are these the people you really want around you? Come forward
Exactly.
and be yourself. Be who you are. Live your truth. Because if
Love
this
that.
is happening to you and you have to keep it a secret, that does psychological damage because you cannot
Absolutely.
live a true life. And it's all about truth. It
And
really
that's
is.
just, and that will just pile on the fear. It will magnetize the fear, amplify the fear. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And
But I'm
love always
wondering,
counteracts fear. Sorry, go ahead.
what does, no, please say that again.
Yeah. Love counteracts fear. Fear can't
Oh,
survive
Yeah.
in a state of love.
that's right. That's right.
And
Love
there
is,
there are people that have been taken on to ship, not abducted. They were invited onto the ship, and they. I know one specific incident when they asked the ET how many have been contacted, and he was told there are millions and millions of people around the world that have been contacted on the ship, and so if somebody have a strange experience they can't put their finger on in the back of their head, you're not alone. There's
mm,
millions of people. There is several different ways to find out what. Hypnosis is one of them, and there are other ways to talk to Nori about. I'll tell you, you're not alone.
mhm. And really a good place to start, and this is how I started. I was climbing 3 sets of stairs in my apartment one day. This was years ago, and I was so uncomfortable because I knew there was more that I couldn't remember. And I got to the top of the step and I stomped my foot and I said, I want to know and I'm not going to be afraid. And be careful what you intend for, because the gates really did open. It came a little faster. I had to back up a little bit to keep my fear intention intact. But just ask for it, intend it, affirm
Mm.
it if you believe, and the right people will be drawn to you to help
Yeah.
you. And the
Yeah,
books,
great
the
advice.
books.
Yeah.
Just go read Denton Preston's books.
Oh, there's so much. 32 books. There's so much.
Oh,
Talk about that a little bit.
yeah.
Ah, yeah. I love writing UFO books. And in a way, it's for myself to help understand and clarify things. I think that's true for a lot of writers, really. But for me, finding out UFOs were real was in and of itself somewhat traumatic for me because it collapsed my belief system. I
Yeah.
realized I had been lied to by our own government, by the media, and even within my own family, people were keeping secrets from me, which was a little bit scandalizing. I was not happy about it. And there was
No.
a whole hidden world going on. That's what
Yes.
really prompted me to start writing books, is because if I could only imagine if this was difficult for me, and I hadn't actually, gone outside and had a UFO pull me on board, I can only imagine how that must be for someone who's absolutely knocked over by an encounter. So that's really what started me writing, and this subject is endlessly fascinating. There's so much we can learn from it. These are beings are very, very advanced. We've got a lot we could learn about medicine, about psychic
Yes.
development, about how to treat each other, how to live without money. All these
Yes.
things that they could absolutely teach us. And
Yes.
it's all connected to all these different subjects, uh, such as near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences and psychic development and even Bigfoot and all of this stuff. So
Yeah.
it became also I realize it's a really important subject because I think that we do have this technology from these craft that have come down and been collected by our military and are being reverse engineered to a certain extent. And that technology should be available to all of us. We should have truth and transparency with this subject. A society that lies to its people is not healthy. It's
Ah,
schizophrenic.
it
So that
is.
that has to stop. I mean, that's just
It
not
is.
okay. So
It
it's
is.
going to take
And
all of us to come together.
it is because we have to heal from the trauma from that betrayal. I mean, first when your brain cracks open and you realize, oh my God, this betrayal and this lie is more huge than I ever imagined it could possibly be. Pretty good imagination. Once you crack that open and you start to equalize from that, then you've got the trauma of being so betrayed that you kind of have to work through too, you know? Thank God there's people like Preston and no,
Well, I'm
I
just
won't I
thankful
won't
that,
name all my
that we're not
favorites.
alone in this universe, that we have ETs out there. And it distresses me when I see how it's portrayed in the media as being a
Yeah.
fearful experience. Because I
Yes.
found out right away that, this is not what I'm finding. I'm talking to
Right.
people who were pulled on board and healed. That was my first
Yes.
book, which I
I
think was
love
a
it.
really important book. And I put out a new version, The Healing Power of UFOs, because I can prove unequivocally that healing is a part of the ET agenda. Because I have
Yeah.
300 documented cases from virtually every major researcher out there. Bud Hopkins has cases. He never wrote about them. I cornered him at a convention once. Like, Bud, what's up? Do you not have healing cases? He's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, actually, I have quite a few. David
Yeah.
Jacobs has them. John Mack, of course, Barbara Lamb, Edith Fiore, Brad Steiger. I can go on and on. This is a
Yes.
big part of ET contact. I started, because Thomas Bullard, he's a folklorist and became a UFO researcher, was the first to basically outline what happens when someone's taken on board. And
Hmm.
he was 100% right. Most common
Well,
thing people do describe is being physically examined. He talks about healings as well. But he says people are taken down to the engine room. Exactly what I found. They will teach you all about how they actually power these craft. And
Hmm.
then he'll
well,
take you up to the control room, the helm, sit you in the pilot seat. He's got many cases of this. I've got a bunch too. All these researchers have these cases. And the problem
well,
is, we're so fear-based in our society that each person has a tendency to sort of view the universe through your belief system, through
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
culture. And it's hard to sit back and just be analytical and objective and unbiased. And I
Now,
really
in
want
your
people
books,
to do this.
Preston, in your books, which book can people find, or what you have written, where you talk about these people being invited onto the ship and get health cures, and also being shown around to the point where they can sit in the captain's chair? What
Well,
books should they look for?
well, I always recommend The Healing Power of UFOs because I think that's a very important book. Really, the only major book out there about this subject. I love my book Onboard UFO Encounters because
Wow.
that's all about people who are being taken on board. Always have to recommend Symmetry, a true UFO adventure, because Dolly Saffron, who that book is about, has the most extensive experiences of anyone I've heard about or even read about. And it's not
Wow.
recalled through hypnosis. And it's not through the lens of fear, which
Mm.
so many, people have a hard time with. It can be very scary for people. I've never
Mm.
denied that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Don't think they're here to take over or hurt people. But yeah, Inside UFOs is another wondrous. Humanoids and High Strangeness. That's another really recent book where I embraced all the paranormal aspects and spiritual
Mm.
aspects that often get censored out of
Mm.
major books about this subject. I know for a
Mm.
fact that some major researchers have not told the whole story. And the people who are in that book, because I talked to them, were not happy about how their encounters were portrayed as fearful. And
Mm.
I'll just say it, David Jacobs, I've talked to a few of his clients, and they were not happy. They said, that's not what happened to me. Because he takes a
Mm.
very dim view on ET contact.
Mm.
Oh,
And that's why I'm saying it. That's why I'm kind of calling it out. It's time for truth. Truth is much
Absolutely.
more important than, hurting someone's feelings. You're not doing
Exactly.
anyone any good if you're lying to them to protect their feelings. You know what I mean?
oh,
100%. Absolutely.
We deserve
Absolutely.
to know the truth, and you'll be much better off. Yeah, it might hurt. And this is why I'm so concerned about how this subject is being portrayed.
Yeah.
Because no, it's not bad. And if a UFO comes down and starts, lasering cities and killing people, that's not ET. And that's, I
no.
Mhm.
think, possibility of what we're looking at here in the future.
Yeah. Yes, I've seen some of those. Is it the blue screen? I catch clips of it on like those talent shows where a couple will come on and they'll be old people and then they'll transform into young people, then there'll be a dragon and a whale, and the panelists, the celebrities that are watching this are absolutely dumbfounded. You can see that by their expression that they're so moved by it, because it looks so real, and I can't help but wonder if that's a little bit of what Dr. Greer was trying to say today. Like, go ahead and look at it. We have to be ready to look at the unimaginable, the unacceptable. We just have to kind of be prepared to look at it, and then we might see it differently.
Yeah.
Remember there was a major strike in Hollywood not too long ago about the use of AI and actors having their images, because they can be deceased and you still star in a movie and you're not actually saying any of it or acting anything. This again is what's in the public arena. Just think,
Wow.
you've seen those robots that are in labs that look really human-like and they're talking, and you're like, this is what we're seeing.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
aren't we seeing? It's
Yeah.
concerning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can say that ETs have worked very hard to announce their presence and
Oh, yeah.
disclose and let people, you know, you mentioned drive-in movie theaters. Um, it was years ago, I interviewed this lady, uh, Claudia, in my office, who had an encounter at a drive-in movie theater where she says UFOs showed up, came right down to next to the screen, and people were honking and dropping their drinks. Some were panicking. It was crazy. And I started diving deeper into that, and I ended up writing a whole book on this.
Wow.
UFOs at the drive-in. because I found over 100 cases. And can I tell you one that's just amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one guy, I interviewed him. Pat Mitchell, I believe is his name. This is in Hutchinson, Kansas, at the South Hutch Drive-In. Such an amazing story. He went there with his friend to watch a James Bond movie, got there early, parked in the center of the theater, got their popcorn, put the little speaker on, how we used to do.
Yeah.
At the climax of the movie, and this is often when it happens, his friend turns to him and says, "What's that? Off in the distance, do you see that?" And Pat's like, "Of course I do." It was a huge bright light approaching the drive-in theater from behind the screen, so everyone
Wow.
could see it. And this is how it often happens. They're not just flying over. I discard
Right.
a bunch of cases because you're out at night and you see stuff.
Sure.
In these cases, these craft, these ETs, these UFOs are coming right over the screen, right above it, or right to either side, in case after case after case. They're basically,
Strategic, right?
yeah,
It's strategic, right?
100%, not accident, absolutely intentional. So this light gets real bright in about 2 minutes. It takes maybe that to get there, and boom, it's right next to the screen. This is a huge screen, brand new, just about. And it's half the size of the screen, so it's about 50 feet across. Below the top of the screen, to the right of the screen, shiny chrome-like metal, yeah, colored lights on it, I believe,
Mm.
violent. And he and his friend are staying in the car. Others are getting out. Some are flashing their lights at it because sometimes they'll flash lights back and stuff, or people are honking their horns. No panic. In this case, everyone was just absolutely dumbfounded. And this craft went behind the screen, came out the other side, rose up, stayed for another 5 minutes. Then, just to make sure, it looks like that everyone here was seeing it, it made one full revolution around the entire parking lot, went back over the screen for a second, then went right over the exit to the drive-in
Wow.
theater, to the road, and then started going down the road right
Oh
above
my
it
God.
at about 10 to 20 miles per hour.
Oh my
So what
goodness.
happens? Yeah, this is so, like you said, strategic, intentional.
How can
Yeah.
you not see that? Yeah, exactly.
And so now, of course, people are driving out to follow it. And Pat
Yeah.
Mitchell, the guy I talked to, says it took us about, we were 20th in line or 10 or 20, following a line of about 30 or 40 cars in convoy down this highway. And, it didn't go off on either side. It went right over the road for 7 miles, which is a long time.
Yeah.
Then pulled off the road and rose up. So now it's about 300 feet up there and stayed for another 5 or 10 minutes. And everyone there was, they were parked in the middle of the road. It was blockaded and they all watched it. This is what I would call a display. This is a publicity stunt. This is disclosure.
Yeah.
Yes,
This is, and it's a really wonderful and clever way to do it
it
because this is a
is.
large group of people. Drive
Exactly.
theaters have at a minimum 20 people in it, but more average, 100, 200, 300, 400 people. I mean, there's somewhere they showed up twin theaters, went to one screen, went to the other, and
Wow.
basically put on a show. They will. They'll put on a show. They not only stay for a very long time at a very low level, but they'll flash their lights, they'll dart around, they'll sometimes turn on edge, release smaller craft. It's
Wow.
astounding that this slipped under the radar of ufology for as long as it did, because there's so many cases. It's such a wonderful thing that they're doing to announce their presence. And rarely got beyond the local news in each of these locations.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
Isn't it Super Bowl time? Wouldn't it be amazing if they could be the halftime show?
yeah,
I know
I
it would
looked
not
for
be
that.
permitted, right? It's not gonna be permitted, but it would be nice to invite them.
The only thing I could find that was at all comparable were the Schoolyard UFO encounters. And I found that actually a year or two earlier, where they're doing the same thing over schools. Uh,
Mm.
well over 100. It's now closer to 200 school encounter cases that I've been able to find.
Really?
I love these because they're daytime, which is fairly rare in terms of the documented UFO encounters. Very low level, very long lasting, very widely viewed. And
Love it.
this couple of really astounding things about the schoolyard encounters is one that half occur at elementary schools. Our
Hmm.
youngest, most impressionable, most able to learn children are having
Yeah.
these encounters who never even heard of UFOs, have no
Right.
belief system to overlay their own interpretations.
Exactly. Right. Right.
And it's very effective because this is something that sticks with them for the rest of their lives. And they
Yeah.
Yeah,
become the
because
movers and shakers
because
in our society.
they're not deep in the hypnosis yet. Yeah, I love it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
And
love.
what's also astounding about these schoolyard encounters is get this shocked me. 1/3 of these cases involve landings and or humanoids coming out. Landings are
Wow.
relatively rare compared to sightings. Not with
Wow.
schoolyard
Wow.
encounters. So yeah, it's
Nobody
very
knows
much
about this.
paralleling. I,
Hardly
it's just
anybody knows about. The only one we heard about is the one over in Africa, where the ship landed in the
yeah,
schoolyard and there was a little robot and a tall human came out. That's the only one we heard about.
yeah. Well, if you dive into it, there's about 5 or 10 really well, fairly well-known ones. Westall High School in Melbourne, Australia, was their most widely viewed, most famous UFO event.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, same darn thing. UFOs hovered over the school, came and landed behind the school. And there's another famous one at Broadhaven in Wales in 1977. Another really well-known one that got national headlines actually was Hillsdale College, which most people don't know, but the craft did actually land next to the school.
Wow.
Over 80 students, faculty, and police officers actually watched this thing. It stayed for 2 hours. That's amazing. So
Yeah.
that's a
Wow.
definite parallel to the drive-in theater encounters. And I looked for sporting events and concerts. And I'm thinking, well, maybe this is it's happening at other venues. Yes, there are some at concerts, and couldn't find 100, but I found a few. And I found one sporting event case. There's some that they come over high school football games and stuff like this. But there was an event in Italy, and gosh, I think it was 1956. 50, don't quote me. It was in the 50s. I'm almost positive 57 over a stadium where there were some 20,000 people, I think, who saw it. It
Wow.
dropped, these craft dropped what we call angel hair. That's
Oh,
sort of a spider web cotton candy type substance. It
cool.
was collected, put in labs and studied. That's
Wow.
great physical evidence. This was another very much intentional, what UFO researchers call a display. And no, they're
Yeah.
not shooting people. They're not committing mass genocide like we do. They're not destroying the environment like we do. They're warning us not
Yeah.
to destroy the environment. They're warning us not to shoot, not to use nuclear power. This is why it always baffles me when people say, "Oh my gosh, they're dangerous." I'm like, "Wait, what? No, 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 no.
No,
Humanity is dangerous. Elements of
we're
humanity."
this.
Yeah, so we're very blessed to have these people coming and letting us know that we're not alone, that
Yeah.
there are advanced societies out there. And that's the real reason I think behind the cover up. Because if all
Mhm.
humanity knew that we didn't need money to live, that there's enough food for everybody, that there's a way to conquer disease, and that we're basically being controlled, it would absolutely cause complete havoc among the 1%ers who are trying to just control all the wealth, trying to
Exactly.
keep power over people. It's insane. It's a form of insanity.
It is insane.
It's
It is.
clinically, psychologically ill to want to
Yeah.
control somebody the way that they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, I can't even wrap my brain around it, how it could be so well laid out so that it's happening.
Yeah,
Who wrote the blueprint for this?
yeah, that was one of the problems with, the Holocaust. People could not even imagine that people would be that evil. and that this could actually
Right?
be happening to a whole segment of our population. It just was unfathomable.
Yeah.
So this is
Hmm.
why we really do, please don't believe a word I say. Do your research.
Yeah.
I always tell people, if you're skeptical about UFOs, I challenge you to do one thing. Ask your family members, ask your friends, ask your coworkers, ask your circle of people that you love and trust. Most of us know 40, 50 people that we can count on. I hope. uh,
Yeah.
and I think you'll get a real shock. I know
Yes.
there's probably not a lot of skeptics watching this show, but I'm sure there's a few because
Yeah.
people are searching for answers, especially now. A lot of people
Mhm.
are finding out, like, hey, I've been lied to. Where do I turn to for information? And you don't get it on the news. You get it from shows like yours.
Mhm.
The internet is where people are now turning to get information
Absolutely.
about this subject.
Yeah. Hmm.
Absolutely. And I know, uh, even when I was a little girl back in Catholic school, uh, I would stand outside. Maybe I was 9 years old, and I was waiting. I'm waiting for my family to come get me. Why did you leave me here? And and I would ask my parents, and these are, my father was he was the head electrician at Otis Elevator for the World Trade Center. So he's right in the middle of, Western America. And I'd say, are there ETs? And he'd go, possibly. And even more, my mother, who's a little New York drill sergeant, very by the book. And she agreed too. But here's the biggest one. My 88-year-old, rest her soul, godmother, who was, I mean, a Christian mystic. I said, come on, Momo, Pleiades is in the Bible. Do you think that there are, people from other planets, or that Jesus had something to do with other planets? She said, I can't deny it. And she was truly a theologian. So,
Hmm.
those kind of vet it for me,
Yeah.
it really
Yeah.
does. Yeah. Yeah, those are
Yeah.
3 of my 40, yeah.
You're lucky.
I
When
know,
I found out
right?
UFOs were real, it divided my family. It really did. They pretty much all came around, except my dad never did. You know,
Hmm.
Yeah,
to the day he died, he wouldn't read my UFO books. He's like, why don't you just write science fiction? Like
Uh,
that.
well,
It's not science.
after he dropped the body and got out there, boy, would he be surprised.
well, he probably read all his books by now anyway, so
Yeah. I miss him.
so
Isn't it? Don't get me wrong. He taught me a lot of wonderful things.
I
Yeah.
He
bet.
really taught me personal power and that we can do anything, that you do have to stand up for what's right, and that love and generosity are crucial, very important.
Yeah.
But I never could bring him around on the UFO subject. Just,
Well,
Right.
that's
I think, this does track families, and it's easy in
Yeah,
my family. And I think he was a little bit afraid of it because maybe he had an encounter.
exactly
Maybe
what I
he
was thinking.
yeah.
I wonder about that. I never got a chance
Yeah,
to ask my mom. She died before I became involved in the subject.
yeah,
My grandmother, she wouldn't talk about it. She
yeah.
says it's against her religion. I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
Uh, but so I never really got to track it back generations. But my little sister had a missing time encounter. My brother had a very close encounter. Two nephews. One nephew saw a humanoid in his room after
Wow.
a UFO sighting. My sister-in-law saw
Wow.
Grace, had an encounter. It's in my family. I know this because
Yeah,
I've had
clearly.
encounters. Um, so
Well,
yeah.
it follows family lines, and then a question for you: have you ever gone back under hypnosis and tried to find out if you had anything that you don't remember?
No, I haven't. I do trust
Uh,
hypnosis. I think it works well, done correctly.
yeah.
And I usually counsel people to first take a few steps. One would be write everything down. Put it in a little journal, put it aside, bring it back, read over it, fill in the details. Join a support group. Listen to what other people are saying. That can jog your memory. Read up on
Hmm.
the subject. Educate yourself.
Yes.
Meditate. Whatever, if you've had a missing time encounter, meditate on it. I have had a missing time encounter. And shortly after that, I started having dreams of being on board. Dreams are
Wow.
a very effective tool to
Yes.
recover amnesia associated with a UFO encounter. They're not erasing your memory, the ETs. It's you. It's a two-way street. They'll facilitate it. But the memories are not erased. They're there. They're being suppressed for whatever reason. I think for
Yeah.
me, because I had a missing time encounter in 1992, very early on in my research. I think if I had had that fully conscious encounter, my research would have shifted to me. It would have been about me, and that really wasn't my goal. My goal was to educate people, not talk about myself.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
I
Uh,
do. And
but yeah, I've considered hypnosis, but I have pretty much remembered a lot.
Yeah.
wow. Wow.
I,
I can't.
before we get any further, I want to ask you a personal question.
Uh-oh.
If
Right.
if a disc came over your house, landed in the backyard, the door came open, and a guy looking just like us stood in the doorway and said, "Do you want to go for a ride?" Would you do it?
Um, well, probably yes, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be using discernment and psychic ability. I'm not going
Yeah,
to be fooled into some weird government my lab.
Mm,
yeah,
I would much
exactly.
prefer a gray, honestly, because that way I know it's not faked. But, well, and
Yeah.
I say that facetiously, but absolutely, I think it's crucial that we do use discernment, which we all have the ability to do. You know when something's off. Yeah, I did have an encounter, and I was ready to stay with them because you're with
Wow.
you. It's a feeling of absolute goodwill and wisdom. You don't have to watch your back. You don't have to
Mm,
worry about liars. You don't have to worry about any of the things that just plague us here on this planet because you're among
mm.
people who are advanced spiritually, ethically, morally, psychically, and it's a
yeah,
breath of fresh air. It's like
Wow.
being in the heavenly realms in a weird way. I've had out of body
Yes.
experiences, and people up there like love and light. It's amazing to be around
Yeah.
people
yeah,
who are that amazing is like the best feeling ever. I loved
Yeah.
it. Yeah. I'm gonna say I knew you were gonna ask. I'm like, oh, I think I know where you're going, Aage. I was gonna jump and say yes. The answer is yes, but yeah, I would. I, and I think this is a good question because if you talk to contactees, and I've talked to a lot of them, a number of them do get that message that there could be an existential crisis, and the day could come when craft land in large numbers, and the door opens, and you have an opportunity to go on board and basically live the rest of your life on another planet, because this one we're on a pathway of unsustainability.
yeah,
We're
Mhm.
looking at some major geological, gosh, how would I put it? CMEs, you know what I mean? Coronal
Yeah.
mass ejections, knocking down
Yeah.
the grid, magnetic
Yeah.
fields collapsing, climate crisis, not global warming so much, but absolute havoc in terms of weather, uh,
yeah.
tornadoes and hurricanes and earthquakes and the whole deal.
Mhm.
Many contactees, most I should say, will get this message. So I think it's a good question
Yeah.
that we
If
should all consider.
if that silver door opened for me, or iridescent, whatever color it is, I only had one question, and it was like, "Do you have cheesecake?" And they'd be like, "Oh yeah, we've got it in the replicator." I'm like, "I'm on. Let's go. I'm in."
Yeah,
Well, they have coffee. I'd like my morning coffee. From what
Oh,
I
coffee
understand, they
too.
do.
yeah, yeah. They
Yeah.
they gotta have coffee.
Yeah, coffee and cheesecake. We're in. Oh my
Oh gosh.
goodness. But Destin, this
There.
hour, Preston, forgive me. Um, this hour has just melted by. It's been so much fun, and we've got about 5 minutes left. And if you would like to tell people how to reach you and how to reach your materials, that would be wonderful.
Thanks, Nori. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's an honor and a delight. Thanks for inviting me. I'll say that first, but I'm pretty easily reachable on social media. I'm on YouTube. I've got a channel. I've got a podcast I do with Dolly Saffron called The Light Gate,
Yes.
which we do each Monday evening from 8 to 10 Eastern. I'm on Facebook, of course, and Instagram and X, as they call it now.
Mm.
You can find my books on Amazon, other online retailers. Go to my website, and there's large excerpts of all my books. So, because some people can't afford, books. Why I do my
Yes.
YouTube channel, because some people prefer, that format. I have a
Yes.
bunch of on audio as well, because those are getting more and more popular.
You
I'm
are.
gonna put
Yes.
out, I'm working on a couple of new books right now. Symmetry 2, continuing the story of Dolly Saffron, and this time focusing more on ET information, because the ETs have a lot to share to humanity. I'm also putting out one on my own out of body experiences, very
Mm.
personal, very all about astral projection.
Wow.
More on UFOs, more on paranormal and supernatural. I love these subjects. There's so much to
Yeah,
learn.
yeah.
Awesome. And we're
You,
just so grateful that you're out there doing it, Preston. So
oh,
grateful. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, and
It's a pleasure. Thank
you
you.
mentioned Dolly Saffron, and that's not hearsay. What she's talking about, that's her personal experiences too. A lot.
Yeah, and well verified. I mean, I vetted her story because it was so incredible. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh my. So you have
Yeah,
to do a lot of fact checking. And I ended up, talking to her family, friends, coworkers, corroborating
yeah,
witnesses. She's got medical
Wow.
evidence, implant evidence. She's got amazing photographic evidence, which is really rare for a contactee. I'll tell
yeah,
you. It's a
yeah.
rare contactee who can capture a photograph. She's got video, and
Wow.
some really outstanding video. So
Oh, okay.
the ETs
I'm
actually
look.
me to, yeah, referred her to me. They used my,
Cool.
which like, whoa, that's
That's
really
cool.
cool. Yeah, how cool is
Hmm.
that?
Very. Love it. I
They know
love
about
it.
Yeah,
all of us. We're all on
yeah,
the radar. Trust
Yeah.
me. All of us
uh,
have the opportunity to have contact. Every one of
yeah,
us.
yeah,
Tis true. It is
yeah.
true.
I'm looking forward to somebody taking their cell phone with them and get invited onto the ship, and they turn on the video, stick it in their pocket, and record everything. Oh boy, wouldn't that be fun? But
Yeah.
folks
Well,
out there,
yeah, there's some reasons why that hasn't happened. It's
Yeah.
a,
yeah,
but
I know, but
the
I'm looking
technology,
for it.
but
uh,
you never
and
know. I
yeah,
think our
also
government
folks,
has that kind of stuff.
yeah. You go to Amazon and put Preston Dennett's name in there, and his books will come up, or go to his website. You get to read more about the books. So, this is something that if you want to get educated, that's a good place to start. And if you are educated, to get more education, that's a good place to start.
True. That's true.
Oh
We
boy,
are
we're
at the
down.
end of our time. Yeah. We're at the end of our time. Thank you so much, Dennett. Thanks, Augie, for being a great co-host. Mac, behind the scenes. Thank you, everybody in the chat room and everybody who is watching the replay. We sure do appreciate you being here and supporting our show. And much love to everybody. And just stay steady. And when anything happens, go, is that real? And see what your gut says, because you'll know the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much love, everybody. See you next week. Good night.
Next week. Take care.